In one home, a doting father turns a cold-blooded killer, while in another, a loving wife poisons her husband and celebrates his death with a party. 2 marriages, 2 horrifying betrayals. And behind closed doors, the truth is far darker than anyone could imagine.
I hope that she's somewhere safe right now and with the kids. But I mean, could she just taken off? I don't know. But if somebody has her and they're not safe, like, I want them back now.
Behind Chris Watts' tearful pleas for the return of his pregnant wife and 2 daughters lay a dark, sinister secret. He knew exactly where they were. As the horrifying truth emerged, it became clear that this doting father had meticulously planned the unthinkable, all while pretending to be a grieving husband. What would drive a seemingly perfect husband and father to destroy everything he held dear? The Watts family looked like they had it all: love, happiness, and plans for the future. But behind the smiles and social media posts, something sinister was unfolding. Shannon, a social media influencer and health product saleswoman, often shared her deep love for her husband, Chris, and their beautiful daughters online. From her Facebook posts, followers saw a devoted mother and wife, happily raising a family. But behind the carefully selected posts and smiles was a darker reality that would end in a horrific crime that shocked the world. Shannon, who grew up in North Carolina, had always been described as a strong and determined woman, despite significant challenges. After a difficult first marriage and a battle with lupus, she met Chris in 2010 through Facebook. Despite initially hesitating to begin a new relationship due to her illness, Chris showed patience and support, eventually winning her over. Shannon would later reflect on how Chris helped her through her darkest moments, telling her friends and social media followers that he was her rock.
And he only knew me at that time. He knew me at my worst, and he accepted me. And, you know, through your vows, like through sickness and everything, he's been there. He was the one that let me lay on him and fall asleep for 3.5 hours on his lap while he had to pee. He is the best thing that has ever happened to me.
The couple married in 2012 and moved to Colorado, where they built a seemingly perfect life. Chris was often described as a quiet and reserved man who rarely displayed his emotions in public. Friends and colleagues found him polite, though not particularly outgoing or engaging. He was dependable, working as an operator for Anadarko Petroleum, and had built a seemingly stable life with Shannon. Yet, beneath this calm and collected exterior, Chris had deep insecurities and desires that he kept hidden. In 2013, they welcomed their first daughter, Bella, followed by their second daughter, Celeste, just 2 years after. Shannon's posts painted a picture of a devoted husband and father, frequently describing Chris as the best partner she could have asked for. Behind the carefully crafted image of a happy family, the Watts struggled with significant financial problems. In 2015, they filed for bankruptcy, citing over $70,000 in debt, most of it due to credit cards, student loans, and medical bills from Shannon's health issues. Despite Chris's steady income and Shannon's work in a health and wellness company, their lavish lifestyle and large home stretched their finances to the breaking point. Then, 3 years later, on Father's Day in 2018, just weeks before the tragedy, Shannon posted a glowing tribute to Chris on Facebook, writing, "Chris, we are so incredibly blessed to have you. You do so much every day for us and take such great care of us. You're the best dad we could have asked for." She often shared posts about how much Chris loved their daughters, regularly posting pictures of him playing with Bella and Celeste. Yet, despite this outwardly perfect facade, her marriage was on the brink of collapse. Behind the scenes, she began to sense that Chris was pulling away from her, and the relationship she thought was solid was starting to unravel. By the summer of 2018, the cracks in their marriage had deepened. Shannon had become increasingly worried about the state of their relationship. She confided in friends that he was becoming distant, less affectionate, and more withdrawn. Her fears grew as she noticed that her husband seemed disinterested in the expansion of their family. On June 11, 2018, Shannon donated a t-shirt with the words, "Oops, we did it again," and wore it in a video recording that she filmed as Chris came home that day. As he entered the home and approached her, the video shows him halting mid-stride, breaking into a grin.
So pink means...
That's just the test.
I know. It just says the pink is going to be girls.
I don't know. Just the test.
That's awesome.
The couple was expecting their third child, a baby boy they planned to name Nico. In the 2 months following, Chris went from expectant father to cheater to killer. Throughout June and July, Shannon repeatedly texted Chris, pleading with him to open up about what was troubling him. In one message, she asked, "I don't know how you fell out of love with me and our family. Please fix this." In another, she begged him to remember the bond they had shared. She was desperate to understand why Chris was pulling away. The truth, however, was far grimmer than Shannon could have imagined. While she was visiting family in North Carolina with her kids, Chris began an affair with his coworker, Nicole Kessinger.
Hi. It's me. I miss your face. I was just calling to say hi. Call me back. Bye. Hi. It's me. You guys just call me back when you have a chance. Bye.
While Shannon was away, Chris spent his days with Nicole, going on dates and spending nights together. They visited car museums, went to the sand dunes, and discussed future plans.
So much for coming out here with me, Christopher. I'm having a wonderful time. You mean a lot to me. And I'm glad that you're having a blast. I am so out of breath.
Meanwhile, Shannon was sending Chris messages filled with worry and concern, trying to salvage what she thought was a crumbling marriage. In early August 2018, Shannon returned from her trip, hopeful that her time away had given Chris a chance to reflect on the relationship. She believed they could still fix what was broken and was determined to save their marriage. Then, on the 9th of August, Shannon went on a weekend business trip to Arizona, hoping that Chris would do the right thing and rekindle the relationship. Before leaving on her trip, she left Chris a heartfelt letter, trying to reconnect and make sense of what was going on in their relationship. She expressed sadness at the distance that had grown between them and how she missed the love they had shared. The note ends with Shannon writing, "I will always fight for our marriage, and you." But Chris was no longer interested. His affair with Nicole had consumed him, and he was no longer interested in maintaining the image of a happy family. The night Shannon returned home from her business trip would be her last. She arrived at their house around 2 a.m. on August 13th, 2018. Less than 2 hours after, Chris confronted her in the bedroom. An argument ensued about their marriage, and Chris strangled her to death. She was 15 weeks pregnant at the time of her death. After killing Shannon, Chris decided to not only cover up his crime, but to eliminate any remaining ties to his old life. He dragged his pregnant wife's lifeless body to his truck, and then woke his 2 daughters, Bella and Celeste, still alive and unaware of what had happened to their mother. Chris loaded them into the truck, and they drove to a remote oil field owned by Anadarko Petroleum, his employer. When they arrived at the oil field, Chris smothered Celeste with a blanket. Bella, watching her younger sister's murder, began to cry and beg for her life. She understood that her father was killing them, and she pleaded, "Daddy, no," as Chris turned on her. After killing his daughters, Chris disposed of their bodies by putting them in separate oil tanks. He threw Shannon into a shallow grave nearby. The act was premeditated, calculated, and cold, carried out without hesitation. Later that day, Shannon's friend Nicole Atkinson became concerned when she couldn't reach her. Shannon had missed a scheduled doctor's appointment and wasn't responding to texts or calls. Atkinson went to the Watts' home, but there was no sign of her friend or the girls, so she called Chris.
He then told me that she did not take the girls to daycare and they were going on a play date. And then I turned around and I was like, well, if they went on a play date, why doesn't she have her car? And then he proceeded to tell me, he's like, I don't know what Shanann's told you or hasn't told you, or if you know any of this, but he's like, and I'm not trying to bring you into our personal stuff, but me and Shanann are separating and we're going to sell the house. And at which point I said, Chris, your personal stuff is none of my business. That's not my concern right now. Either your wife and you will work things out or you won't. But where is your wife?
Concerned Atkinson called 911 to report them missing. When Chris arrived at the Watts home, police and Atkinson were already there. He told them his wife and the girls had left the house early that morning and hadn't returned. He allowed the police to search their home, and nothing seemed out of place, except Shanann's phone, purse, and car keys were still in the house. The police found this odd, but had no reason to suspect foul play at this point. As the search for Shanann and the girls intensified, Chris began making public appeals for their safe return. In a series of media interviews, he expressed his hope that they would come home soon.
I just want them back. I just want them to come back. And if they're not safe right now, that's what's tearing me apart. Because if they are safe, they're coming back. But if they're not, this has got to stop. Like, somebody has to come forward.
But behind the act, investigators were beginning to suspect that Chris knew far more than he was letting on. Over the next 2 days, as the investigation continued, Chris's story began to unravel. A neighbor's surveillance footage showed Chris backing his truck into the garage early in the morning hours of his family's disappearance. Investigators noticed his nervous behavior, particularly when viewing the footage. As more evidence piled up, Chris's calm demeanor began to crack. On August 15th, just 2 days after Shanann and the girls were reported missing, Chris was due to take a polygraph test. But just hours before Chris was set to take the test, his employer alerted the police to the relationship between Nicole and him, which they had uncovered through work emails. Less than 2 hours after her employer contacted the police, Nicole contacted law enforcement to arrange a meeting. But not before deleting all of her internet searches, call logs, and texts to Chris and telling him to do the same. To many, the close timing of her call to the police raised questions about whether she decided to come forward out of civic duty, or if the company's involvement prompted her to do so. Or was it because Chris told her about the polygraph text when they'd last chatted at 2:07 a.m. on August 14th? Meanwhile, Chris's polygraph test results were damning.
So, it is completely clear that you were not honest during the testing, and I think you already know that. You did not pass the polygraph test.
Okay.
Okay. So now we need to talk about what actually happened. And I feel like you're probably ready to do that.
I didn't lie to you on that polygraph, I promise. Chris, I know. Chris, stop. It's time. Just stop for a minute. Take a deep breath.
Unable to maintain his lies any longer, Chris confessed to murder. But he blamed his pregnant wife.
I don't want to protect her. What? I don't want to protect her. You don't want to protect her? I don't know what else to say. What happened? Huh? She hurt him? Yeah. And then well, no, that's not her.
During his confession, he revealed the location of the bodies, leading authorities to the oil site where he had buried Shanann and disposed of Bella and Celeste in separate oil tanks. Shockingly, the opening of the tanks he put his daughter's bodies in was only 8 inches wide. As Chris confessed to killing Shanann, his lover was being interviewed in another room, telling police she believed the two were separated and on the brink of divorce. According to her, the couple were heavily indebted, which frustrated Chris.
And then you mentioned today you read something about bankruptcy.
Yep.
What did you read?
That those guys filed bankruptcy for a lot of money in
Who are those guys?
to that couple
Okay,
in 2015. Oh, Shanann and Chris
thanks.
filed bankruptcy in 2015.
Okay, and you said for a lot of money. Do you recall the amount?
No, because it was different in each of the newspapers, and I don't know which one to believe.
Okay.
So, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Nicole was reported unaware of the full extent of Chris's deception and had no idea Shanann was pregnant.
I know why he lied to me. He lied to me because if I'd have known that he had a child on the way, I'd have never wasted my time with him in the first place. Like, none of this would ever even occur. if he would have just told me the truth.
Authorities later revealed Nicole's internet search history, which told a different story. According to the court discovery documents, Nicole's first Google search for Chris Watts happened on 3rd of August 2017, almost 9 months before her affair started with Chris in June 2018. At the same time, she searched for Shannon Watts as early as January 2018. Both search histories were subsequently deleted. Then, in the 2 months that the affair was ongoing in July and August, she searched phrases like, "Man I'm having an affair with says he will leave his wife." She also looked up information about marrying your mistress and spent hours researching Shannon before and after the murders. Her search history indicated that Nicole would have known that Chris was still married. At the same time, Shannon's social media would have revealed nothing but a happy family life and a couple expecting a child. A week before Chris killed his family, Nicole spent more than 2 hours searching the internet for wedding dresses. On the night before the murders, she spent 45 minutes Googling sex tips. Furthermore, she had a 111-minute call to Chris shortly before Shannon's early morning arrival home, just hours before Chris would kill his family, but could not recall exactly what they spoke about when questioned 2 days after. The day after the murders, she searched, "Can cops trace text messages?" and "Did people hate Amber Frey?" referencing the mistress of a man who had previously killed his wife and unborn child. She even looked up Frey's book deal and net worth. Chris also alluded to the fact that Nicole had bipolar disorder and had several outbursts because of his marital status.
She made a couple videos like when she was just like, talking to herself, saying that she was bipolar or something like that. But a lot of things like when she realized that she's the other person in the relationship, that I'd always put my wife first over her, and that's what kind of made her take a step back a few times, and then I had to kind of calm her down.
On August 21st, just over a week after the murders, Chris was formally charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, along with additional charges for the unlawful termination of Shannon's pregnancy and tampering with the bodies of his wife and children. To avoid the death penalty, Chris accepted a plea deal in November 2018, pleading guilty to all charges. The court sentenced him to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus additional time for the death of his unborn son, Nico, and the tampering charges. In the months that followed, Chris provided additional details about the murders in letters sent to author Cheryl Cadle from prison. In these letters, Chris admitted to planning the murders, revealing that he had thought about killing his family for weeks before carrying out the act. Chris wrote that he first went to his daughter's rooms and attempted to smother them with pillows, but did not complete the act. He then returned to the bedroom where Shannon was, and they began to argue. During the argument, his wife confronted him about the affair, and Chris told her that he wanted a divorce. In a cold, calculated move, Watts decided to kill her. He strangled her, recalling how her face darkened with streaks of mascara as she fought for her life. After killing the mother of his children, he was shocked to find that both daughters had woken up, showing signs of trauma, with bruising around Bella's eyes. Seeing her mother's lifeless body, Bella asked, "What's wrong with Mommy?" He wrapped his wife's body in bedsheets and loaded it into the car. Then he bundled his frightened girls into the vehicle and drove to a remote oil field, where he worked, about 40 miles from their home. Once there, he killed Celeste first by smothering her with a blanket, while Bella watched. He then turned to Bella, who pleaded for her life, and tried to fight back, but he didn't stop until she was dead. He dumped the little bodies in separate tanks at the oil field. Afterward, he buried Shannon's body in a shallow grave, far from the girls, as he still harbored anger toward her, even in death. He also confessed to giving her oxycodone, a painkiller, to induce a miscarriage, hoping that it would be easier to be with his mistress if Shannon were no longer pregnant. In later interviews, he said that Nicole had told him she wanted to bear his first son. While Nicole was never considered a suspect in the murders, subsequent reveals have left many with questions. She was unable to provide police with an alibi on the night of the murders. Phone records revealed that Nicole's phone pinged in Frederick, Colorado on August 13th at 7:15 a.m., even though she lives more than 25 minutes away, and never pings that tower on her daily commute to work. Chris has always maintained that he acted alone, but in a February 2019 interview with the FBI after his plea deal, he said something startling when questioned.
Did you have a shovel?
Yeah, we have a shovel, a rake, and a weed whacker.
A slip of the tongue? Or did he have an accomplice? Concerned for her safety, Nicole reportedly received witness protection and has since changed her name and slipped into the cracks of obscurity. Chris is now serving a sentence in isolation from the general prison population due to concerns for safety. A concern Chris sadly did not share for his own family.
Daddy is a hero. He helps me grow up strong. He helped me snuggle too. He reads me books. He ties my shoes.
She poisoned her husband, threw a party the next day, and then wrote a book on grief. The twisted truth behind Kouri Richins' double life will leave you horrified. Kouri seemed to have it all. A successful real estate career, 3 beautiful children, and a loving husband. But behind the all-American family lay secrets darker than anyone could have imagined. Kouri and Eric Richins were a couple that appeared to have everything going for them. She was a real estate agent who ran her own business, ambitiously flipping properties, while Eric managed a successful masonry company. Together, they shared a love for the outdoors, raising their 3 sons in the quiet town of Kamas, Utah. Eric was known in his community as a hard-working, dedicated family man. He helped on his family's cattle ranch and often took his sons on hunting trips. His love for the outdoors reflected his rugged nature, and his dedication to his family seemed unshakable. On the surface, the Richins appeared to be living the ideal life. But beneath that perfect image, financial troubles were straining their relationship. Kouri's real estate ventures were failing. She was more than $3 million in the red. Desperate to keep up appearances and avoid financial ruin, Kouri had made several risky decisions, including secretly taking out a $250 home equity line of credit on Eric's house by forging his signature. Her husband, on the other hand, was worth $5 million. The cracks in their marriage began to show when Kouri set her sights on a $2 million mansion in Wasatch County. She wanted to purchase, flip, and sell it for profit. Eric, more financially cautious, resisted the idea. As Kouri's financial troubles escalated and her marriage to Eric grew increasingly strained, she wasn't just turning to risky financial schemes. She was also nurturing a secret relationship. Her affair with Robert Grossman, a handyman she met through her real estate business, became a crucial part of her life and her eventual motive for murder. Text messages between Kouri and Robert exchanged in the months before Eric's death painted a clear picture of her desires. Kouri texted her lover, confessing, "I'm in love with a man that's not my husband." She dreamed of leaving her marriage behind, but felt conflicted, writing, "I want to, but I can't break up my family. It's having your cake and eating it too." As the months passed, Kouri grew more desperate to escape her marriage. She sent Robert a series of messages that hinted at her growing frustration. "If I was divorced right now and asked you to marry me tomorrow, you would?" she asked him, adding later, "Life is going to be different, I promise." As her business struggled, the desire for financial security intensified, and so did her secret plotting. Between 2015 and 2017, Kouri quietly took out 4 different life insurance policies on Eric's life, totaling over $1.9 million. Eric didn't know about these policies, and it appeared Kouri was laying the groundwork for something much darker. Then, on New Year's Day in 2022, just months before Eric's death, Kouri made a bold move. She changed the beneficiary of Eric's $2 million life insurance policy to herself, without his knowledge. But Eric caught on. He quickly reversed the change, ensuring his business partner would receive the benefits instead of Kouri. It wasn't just about money anymore. Eric's suspicions about his wife were growing, and with good reason. He had already started to fear for his life. On Valentine's Day 2022, Eric received what seemed like a loving gesture. A sandwich left in his truck with a heartfelt note from Kouri. But shortly after eating it, he began to feel his throat tighten. His body broke out in hives, and his breathing became labored. It was an allergic reaction, something that hadn't happened before. In a panic, Eric grabbed his son's EpiPen and managed to save his own life. Shaken, but alive, Eric began to suspect that Kouri had tampered with his food. He confided in his friends and family, telling them that he believed Kouri was trying to poison him. It wasn't the first time he'd felt this way. There had been a similar incident 3 years earlier while on his holiday. During his trip to Greece, he had become violently ill after Kouri gave him a drink. He later told his sister that he thought his wife was trying to kill him. But this time, Eric was certain. In the weeks that followed, Eric made moves to protect himself. He quietly updated his will, removing Kouri as the beneficiary and naming his sister instead. He knew something was wrong, but no one could have predicted what would come next. On 3rd of March 2022, the couple was celebrating the sale of a home, sharing a quiet evening at home. To toast their success, Kouri mixed Eric a Moscow Mule, a cocktail he enjoyed. But what Eric didn't know was that his wife had laced the drink with fentanyl, a deadly opioid that can kill in even the smallest amounts. While preparing the drink, Kouri was also engaged in an intimate exchange with her secret lover. At 8:36 p.m., she sent her lover a photograph of 2 people kissing, captioned, "Love you." He responded with "love you" and a kissing emoji, as if nothing were amiss. Just moments after, she handed Eric the poisoned drink, knowing it would be his last. Earlier that year, on Valentine's Day, Kouri had also texted her lover while allegedly attempting to poison her husband with a fentanyl-laced sandwich. She kept him updated on her arrival time to meet him, even as Eric lay at home recovering from the allergic reaction caused by the sandwich. Following the failed poisoning attempt, Kouri texted her lover, stating, "If he could just go away, life would be so perfect." This time, she was going to make sure she would get her perfect ending. After sipping the drink, Eric went to bed, unaware that he was mere hours away from death. Kouri later told police that she left the room to check on his sleeping sons and returned to find her husband unresponsive in bed. She called 911, but by the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. Eric was dead. At first, Kouri seemed distraught. She told police, "He didn't just die in his sleep. This is insane." But her words were hollow. Investigators would soon uncover the truth. Eric had been poisoned, and Kouri had orchestrated the entire thing. The morning after Eric's death, Kouri didn't act like a grieving widow. Instead, she closed on purchasing the $2 million mansion she had been eyeing, alone. Then she threw a party at her house, celebrating with her friends, drinking heavily and behaving as if nothing had happened. The callousness of her actions shocked those around her. How could a woman who had just lost her husband behave so indifferently? Kouri's focus shifted quickly to securing Eric's financial assets. That same day, she hired a locksmith to open a safe, which contained up to $165,000. But when Eric's sister confronted Kouri, warning her she had no right to access the safe, Kouri's mask slipped. In a fit of rage, she punched her sister-in-law in the face and neck, a chilling glimpse into her true nature. The investigation into Eric's death quickly escalated. The medical examiner found 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in Eric's system, making it clear that his death was no accident. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a trail of damning evidence. On Kouri's phone, they found a series of Google searches, each one more incriminating than the last. She had searched for things like, what is considered a lethal dose of fentanyl? And luxury prisons for the rich in America. She also looked up ways to delete data from old iCloud accounts and how to avoid being forced into a lie detector test. These searches painted a picture of someone meticulously planning a crime and trying to cover up their tracks. But perhaps the most damning piece of evidence came from a former employee of the family. The employee told investigators that she had sold Kouri $900 worth of fentanyl before Valentine's Day and again 2 weeks later, when she messaged asking for the Michael Jackson stuff. In other words, a cocktail of prescription drugs like OxyContin and Demerol. Eric's family had long suspected something wasn't right in the marriage. In the weeks before his death, Eric had confided in them, expressing fears that Kouri might be trying to kill him. His decision to remove her from his will was a desperate attempt to protect himself. But in the end, it wasn't enough. After Eric's death, his sister was vocal about her suspicions. She described Kouri as manipulative and greedy, driven by a desire to control Eric's assets. The violent confrontation over the safe only solidified the family's belief that Kouri had orchestrated her husband's death for financial gain. But Kouri wasn't finished building her facade. In a disturbing move, she released a children's book on grief in March 2023, exactly a year after her husband's murder. The book, Are You With Me?, was meant to help children cope with loss, and painted Kouri as a loving widow struggling to support her sons through the tragic death of their father. Just 2 months after, in May, Kouri was arrested on multiple charges, including aggravated murder, attempted murder, possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute, forgery, insurance fraud, and mortgage fraud. She has pleaded not guilty to the charges and is set to stand trial in early 2025. Meanwhile, there have been allegations that Kouri's mother, Lisa Darden, may have had some involvement in her son-in-law's murder. Investigators found a potential connection between the 2006 overdose death of Lisa's former romantic partner and Eric's poisoning in 2022. According to a recently unsealed affidavit, Lisa's partner had died from a drug overdose, and Lisa was named the beneficiary of her partner's estate shortly before their death. This has subsequently raised suspicions that Lisa could have influenced or even helped plan Eric's murder, using the earlier death as a roadmap. This suspicion surrounding Lisa was further fueled by the discovery of the Walk the Dog letters, confiscated from Kouri Richins' jail cell in September 2023. In the 6-page letter to her mother, Kouri allegedly instructed her to persuade Kouri's brother, Ronnie Darden, to provide false testimony. The letter detailed a fabricated story, where Ronnie would claim that Eric had sourced fentanyl from Mexico during his trips, thus creating an alternate explanation for the drugs found in his system. Kouri also discussed financial concerns, mortgages, and even personal vendettas against her sister-in-law. The letter's contents have been described as witness tampering, potentially sabotaging her defense strategy. With the trial set for April 2025, the Walk the Dog letter could play a pivotal role in determining Kouri's fate, as prosecutors argue it highlights her desperate attempts to manipulate the narrative. Before you go, I'd love to know if you like having multiple stories in one video. Let me know in the comments down below. And if there are any cases you'd like for me to cover, you can email them to me using the address on my channel. Thank you.